Let's move over to the other side of the bracket. We will start with the Tigers and the Astros. Um, we have talked at nauseum, and
I
me,
wonder who you're picking.
the me specifically. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Me specifically talking about the Tigers in the last month. They get in now. I think they win the first game against the White Sox to get in. I think they really screwed themselves by having basically two hangover games in a row, and now they're playing the Astros instead of the Orioles, which really I think hurts them a lot. But they get in. They're a fun team, and I will still stand by. I think the Astros facing Screwball the first game of the series is going to be tough for them. But Will, we know the Astros. We know they were counted out all year. Then they just fought back, and they have the pedigree. Really, I mean, if you look at the AL, people are really considering them one of the favorites because of their history. So, I mean, what do they need to do to just these hot and gritty Tigers to get rid of them?
Well, there's one big factor that we are waiting oh so patiently to hear about, and that is the health of Yordan Alvarez, because he has got about a 50-50 chance to be in the wild card series. And if he is not in the wild card series, that is a big blow to the lineup. And the Astros offense, especially recently, when it comes to facing some of the better teams, have not done so well offensively. Against the Mariners, they scored 6 runs in 3 games. 4 of them came in their win on Tuesday. The series before that versus the Padres, they scored 5 runs in 3 games. They did a little more versus the Guardians, but the Guardians, like so many teams at that point, were in the postseason. So it's hard to, in my mind, fully gauge the last series of a season if you know your opponent is in, because game plans may be completely different. Mindsets are completely different when nothing's on the line. But the Tigers, to me, prior to the 2 hangover games, as you called it, and even the loss, they scored still 5 runs. Their offense has been doing fairly well recently. And Screwball's leading the way. This Tigers rotation isn't deep, but they only need to get through 3 games and maybe two. So I feel like while sure the Astros definitely have the experience and over the Tigers to me actually seem a little more prepared, I think, entering the postseason.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, the Alvarez injury is probably the biggest thing in this series. We know what he does on a regular basis, and then really turns it up for the playoffs. So that's going to be huge. But yeah, as you said, I mean, the Tigers' offense has been getting hot of late, and I that was always the problem with them. It was, they have all these young pieces on offense. When will it come together? That was the story kind of coming into this year because we thought now, obviously, things have changed because they had Jack Flaherty and stuff like that. But we thought, hey, their starting rotation actually looks pretty decent. They have a potential Cy Young winner. They have some veteran pieces there. Their bullpen looks good enough, and it's true that that's the case. But they've obviously done it in a different way than we thought. So if the offense can stay sizzling, there is potential here for an upset, if you will. But John, I think when you kind of look at this series from the Tigers' perspective, they there was no way that this team was supposed to be in the playoffs right now. There was no way that they were supposed to be here. The energy that they put in, the highs that they had. I mean, again, for them, what do they have to do? Because it's been such a great year, and I think getting to the playoffs is great, but they want to do more.
Well, first I want to say they went on an absolute tear that was completely unbelievable throughout the month of September and I want to say late August. It was ridiculous. The fact that they clawed their way back and not only clawed their way back, but clawed their way back into the final wild card spot to even make it somewhat interesting. These Tigers, they were hot. They were, you know, really riding a wave of momentum here. I'm looking at this series, and you know the Astros won the series against Cleveland, their last series. They won 2 out of the 2 games that they played because the last game was canceled. Um, so you might as well count that as just a rest day for them. So they're going off of 2 rest days. Then you have the Tigers, who are coming off of a loss in their last game to the White Sox. In fact, I'm pretty sure they lost the series, the White Sox.
Yeah, they lost the last 2 games.
So the White Sox are no fun, first of all. Second of all,
They made history barely.
it's, they didn't make it. They didn't do it right. They were supposed to get the.
They didn't do it for the
too.
people. They did it to be humiliated
just-
a fraction of a tenth less.
It's just
You can't
funny
make
how
history
they
in a good way. You should make it in a bad way.
like they were so bad, obviously so bad throughout the year, and then when they realized that they had a chance to break the record, they really turned it on in the last week and a half.
Yeah, they were fueled out of we're not going to be embarrassed.
If they would have just played like that the whole season, they might be in the playoffs. So
I don't know playoffs, but they might have 60 wins.
Then Tyler might be saying those gritty socks, man. Those gritty socks.
I will never hear those words in that form come out of his mouth about that team.
Anyway,
yeah.
Going back to the Tigers losing that series, so their momentum, they after having 2 losses and then a day off, they got to recapture that if they're gonna go against this team. Like you said, the experience factor of the Astros is a huge advantage here because once the lights are on brightest, the game changes. I mean, and we saw this last year with the Orioles, for example. We saw this however many years ago it was with the Phillies. These young teams, they get in, but they almost freeze. So you got to be, if you're the Tigers, you got to recapture that magic that you had, not just last month, or not just this month. Excuse me, because we're still technically in September. But also the month before that, and you need to turn it back on because right now you're cooled off in my eyes.
No, they're not. 2022 Phillies did the exact same thing, and look what happened to them. I think when it comes to a team that is not expecting to get into the postseason, and they can do that in the final series like they did, regardless of the last 2 games, I don't think that takes off the momentum at all in their eyes. It's really if you get too much of a break.
That standard is Tigers Braves World Series. There you go. We're going
if we want to go by standards, the World Series is going to be like Mets. Guardians and Mets, and the Guardians will win.
Hey, they'll finally break that streak from 48.
Look, yeah, I wouldn't put too much into the Tigers' last 2 losses because the second game of the series was definitely a hangover game. Those guys are partying, and the third game, again, like they have worked their asses off from, really, again, August 1st was when they really turned things on. 34-19.
An offensive showing.
No. This is the White Sox.
I get that, but like
you can throw your bats on the field and you can beat the White Sox.
We just said though that they really did not want to have the worst record and not be humiliated. They're still a professional baseball team that have different desires entering that last game of the season.
You were the hottest team in baseball. You should have been able to throw
They're
your
still
gloves
the
on
hottest
the field.
team in baseball.
You should have been able to throw your gloves
the
on the
Angels
field.
are also right there, man.
Once again, we have the arguments about the worst teams in the league. We're having these playoff
John can't just accept the fact that the bad teams can be good every once in a while.
The A's, the White Sox. Yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock in it. This series is going to be awesome, though. I was really looking forward to a potential Diamondbacks Padres series. But if the Tigers were going to play either the Orioles or the Astros, I think it was going to be fun either way. So we will see that coming up. And
I don't think it's going to be as fun as you think it will be.
What, for the gritty Tigers? Come on now. We'll see. We will see. And again, that Jordan injury is going to be a lot of the case. And, if the Tigers can get that, what feels like, I'm not going to say a guaranteed win, but what feels like they have a really good chance of winning when Skubal's on the mound. If they can get that win, just got to find a way to win more in the next ones.